Welcome to 5 in 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Sniper Elite, specifically the solo mode, where you take a sniper and try to accomplish objectives. And a disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this one. I mentioned in my playthrough video a day or two ago that while I enjoy the solo mode, it has some flaws. Let's see if they were enough to bring down the whole experience. So first at number 5, starting with a pro, is the variety in the game. Now in the base set, you only have one double-sided board, one map, so it might seem a little too limited. But even just playing solo, the way the game plays out can be quite different. You have different loadout cards each time, different objectives, usually a different starting point, different Atoma cards in their deck, making them activate in different ways. And then there are a whole bunch of difficulty options to make the game easier or harder, or any mix of that, so I think you get quite a bit out of the game, even if you just buy it for solo. But I'm down to a mix at number 4, and this is a pretty important one based on the name, and that's the sniping, the combat in the game. So on the positive side, the push your luck nature of the combat, basically you pick your target and then draw tokens, as many as you want from a bag, but the more negative tokens you draw, bad things could happen, but if you don't draw enough positive ones, you won't hit. That all works really well in the solo. It's basically identical to the multiplayer system, which is also really good. But on the negative side, while in competitive play, the sniping gives away your position if you're too close to the target, kind of like in real life. In solo, it's totally flipped on its head, and it's kind of the obvious choice to attack the closest soldiers all the time. And in my games, I felt like I was killing somebody basically every turn, definitely not the case in the competitive game. So I don't know if this is an entirely fair complaint, but it doesn't really feel like I'm a sniper. It doesn't really feel long range. It doesn't really feel like infrequent. I'm just sort of like stabbing people every turn in a way, or shooting them with a handgun. And, you know, they don't really like zero in on your location the same way, of course, because it's just solo. So long story short, I like the mechanics of the sniping, but it's not as satisfying in solo play. I have another mix at number 3, which is the difficulty of the game. And the big con to start out with is that the game is way too easy. Like way too easy at the basic setting. And I'll go out on a limb here and say that the game is kind of always a bit easy. I've played with almost every single difficulty setting turned on, like the hardest the game can get, and still either won or come close to winning most of the time. So that's the negative side. But the positive side, to be fair, is that they do have these interesting difficulty settings, and you can kind of mix and match positives and negatives. Now again, I would say you probably need to lean mostly on the negatives to really have a challenge, but still I appreciate that they included that if I want to have a less tense game or want to play with my kids, for example. They have tons of options and tools to make that happen. I have another mix at number 2. There are a whole bunch of them in this review, and that is the Atoma and how it works. On the positive side, I like the core mechanics of them. You have at any given time 2 face-up cards and 1 face-down card that tell you what the Atoma can do, and you roll a die, but it's very much weighted towards certain cards, so you have a lot of predictability in what will probably happen on their turn. So that all works really well. The negative side of this is in the cards themselves. First of all, some of them move every person, and sometimes in not too user-friendly ways. It can just feel really fiddly to figure out like 9 guards and who's closest to what and which path is the fastest. It's a little bit boring sometimes when your turn takes like 5 seconds and then you spend like a minute or two just fiddling with the AI. And the other thing is, while I understand the use of some of the cards that just straight up teleport people all over the place, I understand it from a functionality standpoint, it doesn't necessarily feel great when you've done something really clever to kind of lead the guards in the wrong direction, but then the card just kind of randomly like makes them magically appear next to you anyway. It's a minor complaint though, because again, I still like the core system of how the cards work. And finally, my number 1 is the stealth and the movement in the game. This is something that's important to me if you saw my burn cycle review, for example. And this is, again, a mix, and it's a mix because the game can really go either way based on the swinginess of the AI and kind of how the cards and things turn out. Sometimes the game feels awesome. Like, go watch my solo playthrough. There were a few moments where I really did like cool things, like waited it in a spot for a turn so that the AI would all like come towards me and then ran in the other direction. When those kind of tactics work out, especially with that more predictable AI card structure, you can feel totally awesome. You know, maybe not quite as cool as the actual hidden movement in the competitive game, but still really neat. But on the other hand, going back to things I've already mentioned, when the difficulty isn't high enough and you can just kind of like literally dash towards the target with almost no repercussions, that's not so great. Or when the random Atoma cards, especially the teleporting ones, kind of work out in weird ways and the cool ideas you had for stealth just totally fizzle up in smoke, that's not great either. So my games have been about 50-50. Some of them have had awesome stealth moments, other ones not so much. So overall, the big takeaway for this review I'll give to you is I wouldn't get Sniper Elite just for the solo. And it's not that the solo in Sniper Elite is bad, I actually quite like it. But if you want that kind of experience, get V Commandos, get Burn Cycle. There are many other stealth games that are specifically focused on solo cooperative play that just straight up do it better. But that being said, if you like hidden movement games and you might play Sniper Elite competitively sometimes, the solo is a great add-on, and there really haven't been any other that I can think of solo hidden movement games. You have mind management with the app, which lets you play on the other side, kind of the hunting down side of things. But this is the first one I'm aware of that takes a hidden movement game and has you play the solo side of it, which is often the most exciting side for me. So yeah, if you think you'll like the competitive, the solo is an awesome add-on, but by itself, probably not worth it. And again, if you want to see the game in action, check out my solo playthrough, linked right up there. Until next time, I'll see you at the next stop.